Caloroga Shark Media.
Hi, Leo. I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. GQ asked Jerry, had the Seinfeld finale bothered him all these years? Jerry said, a little bit, yeah. I don't believe in regret. I think it's arrogant to think you could have done something different. You couldn't. That's why you did what you did. But me and Jeff Schaefer and Larry were standing around talking about TV finales, which we thought were great. I feel Mad Men was the greatest. A lot of people like the Bob Newhart one. Mary Tyler Moore was okay. I think Mad Men was the greatest final moment of a series I've ever seen. So satisfying, so funny. And they said that they had sat and watched the Seinfeld finale trying to figure out what went wrong. And it was obvious about that final scene, leaving them all in the jail cell. I think we were affected by some things people had said, that they were selfish or whatever. And looking back on it, I think they were great. I love them. First of all, you're not doing comedy without self-directed individuals. There's an essential element of comedy since Shakespeare and forever. You can't do comedy without selfish people. That's what people relate to. Jerry talked about revealing very little about himself. Jerry said, I do this one bit about I don't have arguments with my wife. Now, when I say those things, the audience knows that they can't be true, but they don't care because they want to hear the joke. The great joy to me is I'm making this up, but let me see if I can make it sound like it makes sense to me. That's what comedy is to me. They know I'm lying from the first line, and they don't care. I always say, I don't want to hear amusing anecdotes from your journal. Talk about something that couldn't possibly have happened. That's what I want to hear. I just think if you're a comedian and you want to survive, your only flotation device in the oceanic waters of show business is real laughs. When you're young and cute and interesting at 23 or 33, a lot of things work. When you're 53, if you want people to get in their car and pay cash and schlep into those seats, it's harder. I would just caution the next generation. If you want to do this your whole life, which every comedian does, make sure you're getting real laughs. GQ asked Jerry, are you saying the more confessional style of comedy is anti-laugh? Jerry said, no. I'm saying I know a million comedians whose work dried up at 53. You got to be ready for that. Make sure you're working to be ready for that. Forbes asked Brad Williams, what surprised you about doing stand-up that you didn't know beforehand? Brad said, one of the surprising parts about comedy is also one of the most beautiful. You can be Jerry Seinfeld, and the process is still the same, and the stages are still the same. Jerry still has to walk through the kitchen. He's a billionaire, and he hangs out in the same tiny green room that all the other comics do. Comedy humbles you. It keeps you humble. Forbes also caught up with Billy Gardell. He's back out doing stand-up after being a TV star for a few years here. He says at the beginning, it was terrifying because I hadn't done it in like 3 years. Obviously, I took some time to change my health, and I took some time off to rearrange the puzzle pieces. You know, I lost 173 pounds, and I had to get used to this frame and what this body wanted to tell me. So it's been fun to explore that. Yeah, if you haven't seen a picture of Billy Gardell, Google him. You won't recognize him. He looks great. The first show back was terrifying, but then, I don't know, man, something happens when you get that connection with the audience. You start to want more and more and more, and now I'm really having fun again. I can't believe I've gotten to do 2 hit TV shows. I don't know who gets to do that. My wife says I've got a horseshoe in my butt, but the common thread in both those shows is that love wins the day, where the world is right now. I'm so proud of that show, Bob Hart's Abishola. All right, how does it keep the weight off? I'm religious about it. I pack healthy stuff in my suitcase. When I get to a destination, my first trip is to get some healthy snacks for the room so I don't tempt myself. I find a way to work out. I got a trainer who says there's always time in the day. It just means you got to get up an hour earlier or go to bed an hour later. I've adapted that mantra, man, and finally learned it's not torture to do this stuff. It took me until 52 to figure it out. I'll be 55 in August, but I'm a big believer that enlightenment doesn't care when you get there as long as you arrive. I'm learning to take care of myself, and I'm finding joy in that. Maybe he'll get me remotivated. For someone who, humble brag, did the New York City Marathon, I guess it's 7 months ago now, I can't run 2.5 miles right now. It's unbelievable. Don't turn 50-something, guys. Billy Gardell talks about localization. I try to find something cool in each city I go to. I tell my son this all the time. You got to go look for inspiration, and it's not going to knock on the door. You got to read. When I was in Kansas City, I went to jazz legend Charlie Parker's gravesite. In St. Louis, they've got toasted ravioli. In Philadelphia, it's the Liberty Bell or museums. And usually some kind of inspiration will come from that. Other things he does, I'm a big vinyl guy. I'm always adding to my record collection. I also like to mess with my car a little bit. I'm a simple guy that way. When I get my downtime, I try to cherish it at home. Eddie Murphy didn't think Beverly Hills Cop was going to go well. He was 23 years old in 1984. He went to the industry screening and said, it didn't go well. A lot of times at industry screenings, they don't laugh. I thought the movie was going to be horrible. I was with director John Landis, and he was like, no, it's great. I thought they hated it. Then I went and I saw it with a real audience, and I saw the real reaction to it. But the very first time, it was scary. Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. on Netflix, July 3rd. They might even make a 5th movie. Murphy said they're developing it. If it comes together, we'll be doing another one. However, the latest film took a toll on his body. I messed my knee up before the movie started. I didn't mess my knee up doing a stunt. I messed my knee up sleeping. When you're getting your 60s, you can mess your body up just sleeping. I hear you. The LA Times really likes Jim Norton's podcast, Sword Fight. Jim says, we have the typical married stuff and people can respond the way they want to, but the podcast is accurate, it's truthful, and we're not trying to put masks on to pretend. The best way to get people to change how trans people are viewed is to interact with trans people so they can realize, oh, hey, they're just like everyone else. She laughs at weird things and wants to do stuff at 11 at night when she knows I have to work in the morning, so it's like having a child. Nikki said, I also think Jim's friends know this is for real, and I think they can tell that Jim is very serious about this relationship. In my eyes, what a man Jim Norton is. To take me to comedy clubs around all these men when I'm from another world and foreign, you do get looked at a little differently, but what a man he is. I mean, people might look at him as a little feminine or a little sub in a way, but you're such a man. Jim says, you see what marriage life is like? She makes me feel really good. Do you see what a man is? He's a trans icon. Sure, the whole world thinks he's a fruit and a sub and a bottom, but I'm telling you, what a man. My guest on tomorrow's podcast is Emily Catalano. She's got a new album out today. It's called Hey. Hey also comes available pressed on limited edition vinyl with a gorgeous matte finish jacket designed by Yonil. Emily Catalano's Hey out today on the Blonde Medicine label, and I'll speak with her tomorrow. It's more of a 20-minute John interviews a comedian. So if you're looking for one of these one-hour epics that I've handed in the last few weekends, it's not that. John Crist will tape his next special tonight at Gas South Theater in Atlanta. Law Smith spoke to Creative Loafing Tampa Bay. Law is making a comedy special, quote-unquote, finally. Law Smith says, I squandered previous album deals, made excuses like my divorce drama taking up all my RAM space for years. Been 14 years in comedy without any asset to show for it. I turned 40 on June 25th, and it gives me something on the calendar to either nut up or shut up. He'll be at The Gimmick tonight and Sunday, where he'll be taping his first special over 2 nights. It might wind up being called Sunny State for Shady People, or maybe not. He hasn't finalized the title yet, but the main topic is all set, Florida and Tampa. Smith said, my argument is that Florida is the most American state. It's the F-ups that import here to start a second life that make the Florida man news. Smith also hosts a podcast called Sweat Equity that contains comedic elements but is also focused on small business and entrepreneurial advice and strategies. As for the tapings, Law says, I wanted to keep it local because Tampa Bay has amazing underrated talent. Go see him tonight at The Gimmick. British comedian Ted Robbins is related to Paul McCartney. Yes, that Paul McCartney. Robbins' late mother was Paul McCartney's first cousin. He told the Chattabix podcast that having such a huge star in the family has not been easy for everyone. He says, Paul and my mom are first cousins. You know, when people do the who's the most famous person on your phone? Well, that's Mr. McCartney. In some ways, it's a great thing, and for some members of our family, I won't name names, it's kind of screwed their lives up a little bit because you're compared. You know what I mean? Paul McCartney and all that. You become a dentist? Great. Robbins thinks that's particularly true for Paul McCartney's younger brother, Mike, who is a musician and goes by the name Mike McGear. I think Mike, his brother, who's the loveliest of men and talented, but his fear is on his gravestone. Here lies Paul McCartney's brother. Robbins also claims Paul McCartney's 1970 song Teddy Boy was written about him. You know, he wrote a song called Teddy Boy, which was on his first solo album called McCartney, and you know it goes, this is the story of a boy named Ted, and it was sort of inspired by me. The Washington Post has been looking at the D.C. comedy scene. They spoke with Shelly Kim, who has been performing since high school in Southern California. She describes herself as proud husband and father. No, I didn't mess up. How do you describe your comedic style, Shelly Kim? Shelly says, when I was starting out, I was described as deadpan, but I learned I was deadpan because I was mumbling a lot. I've really worked on my inflection since then. My comedy is much more accessible and, most importantly, audible, but who knows what my style will be in the future? Maybe I'll be using puppets. Tell us about a time you bombed. She says, oh gosh, one time someone played cricket sounds from their phone. I still shudder when I hear crickets at night. Do you have a day job? Let me know if you're hiring. What's your pre-show routine? I mount the first few words of my set over and over. It's more of a nervous tick than a routine. I'm doing my best not to be a mumbler again. What else should we know about you? Let me know if you're hiring. Hilarious. And that is your comedy news for today. All right, Emily Catalano tomorrow, a normal episode on Sunday. See you then.